Hello everybody, this is another Hot Wheels Collector video. Today we're looking at the Audi 90 Quattro. This is a brand new casting for 2023. This casting first debuted in the 2022 F-Case as a brand new casting in glossy white with the same livery which the red version of this car, which we are looking at today, has. And then the only other version of this casting to debut so far is this one, which has been done in glossy red and first debuts in the 2023 Q-Case. The reason why it's only got two colours is simply because this casting is brand new for 2023. I will quickly mention that this car features in the 2023 Retro Races series, and this car is number 6 out of 10 in that set. I will also mention that this car is number 77 out of 250 for 2023. So I will quickly mention where I actually found this car then. So I found this car in a local Aldi store at the price of £1.69. That's sort of the standard price for mainlines here in the UK. But anyways, I heard that Aldi stores were going to be getting Q-Case in through a Facebook group. So I quickly went to my local Aldi store and I was super disappointed to see that there were actually no Hot Wheels at all. But then I was looking through the comments under that post and people were saying, look out, on Monday morning, the stores are supposed to be putting their stock out then. All the stores were supposed to get a memo telling them to put them out on Monday morning. However, some stores didn't get the memo and hence put the cars out too early. So I went back to that same store on that Monday morning and voila, there were 5 fresh boxes. I went through all of them, found 2 treasure hunts, all the new stuff that I wanted, including recolours and new castings. But unfortunately there were no super treasure hunts, but that's something you do come to expect here in the UK. They are ridiculously rare here and I've never found one in the wild. But anyways, let me give you some facts about the real life car. So in real life, the Audi 90 Quattro IMSA GTO, which is what this car is, was a specialised version of the Quattro designed for racing in the IMSA GT Championship, and this car first entered in 1989. This car also had a 2.2 litre inline 5 engine with a KKK turbo mounted to it. This car produced 720 horsepower and 720 newton meters of torque, converting to 531 pound-feet of torque. This car was also all-wheel drive and weighed about 1,200 kilograms, which converts to 2,660 pounds. This car also had a 6-speed manual transmission and also had a top speed of approximately 186 miles per hour or 300 kilometers per hour. This car also had a 0 to 60 time in just 3.1 seconds. That's something to be expected though, as this car is all-wheel drive, so you would expect this car to have good levels of traction. And I will finally mention that this car was for track use only, so it was never sold to the public when it was new, and hence we don't know the value of this car. But anyways, that is it for the facts about this thing. Now let's move on to my showcase of the Hot Wheels model. Alright, so kicking off this showcase then, we'll first of all take a look at the side of this car, and I'll first of all mention the wheel choice on this thing. This car is running on the Aerodisc wheels, which first debuted in 2018, and on this car they have been painted in white. I actually think that these wheels suit this car fantastically, and I also don't see why so many people hate these wheels. I actually think these wheels look pretty good on quite a few cars. Now it's nice to see these wheels on this car because the real life Audi Quattro also does have these Aerodisc-esque wheels which were also painted in white in real life, so it's awesome to see them pretty accurately portraying the real life Audi Quattro's wheels. Next up, for the actual colour of this car then, it is all painted in this glossy red colour. And now onto the tamper work on the side of this thing then. It's absolutely plentiful, so let's get straight into it. First of all, we do have the Audi Sport writing being done in white tampo. We also do have the Audi Racing stripes, including black, grey and white. The reason why they've put a white stripe on this thing instead of a red stripe is simply because the rest of the car has been painted in red. So if they'd done a red stripe, it would blend in too much with the rest of the car. So they decided that a white stripe would look better, and I honestly do think that is the best move they could have made there. We also do have the Audi writing being done in white tampo, as well as the Quattro writing being done in white as well. We also do have the DAV logo featuring on the side of this car being done in white tampo. If you don't know what that stands for, it stands for Dwayne Vance, and he is the design manager at Hot Wheels. We also do have the C-Von logo being done in white. I actually don't know what that stands for. I'm guessing it's maybe a designer or something at the Hot Wheels team, but I couldn't find anything on that, at least online. We also do have the Goodyear writing being done in white tampo as well. They produce high performance tyres, and we also do have the Fraser Campbell logo being tampoed on here as well. He is the designer, or at least one of the designers of this car. Next up, we do have the Racing number 4 being tampoed on here in white in a 3D look. Very nicely done there. And we also do have the GT logo featuring on the side of this thing as well. The letter G and T have been done in red tampo. Then this does have a white background, and then around that white background we do have a black outline. Next up, I'll mention that we do have the continuation of the Audi Sport stripes featuring on the front fender of this car, and we also do have the Hot Wheels logo also being tampoed on here in white. Next up, I'll mention that the exhaust tip of this car does receive a little bit of black tampo, and I will mention that the exhaust tip does actually feature on the side of this car in the metal casting whilst we're here. And finally, I'll mention that the side skirt of this car does receive some white tampo. I will also mention that this white from the side skirt does continue onto the front bumper portion of this car, as well as the black stripe also continuing there. That is it for the tampo work on the side of this thing then. So now onto the actual metal casting itself and also plastic usage. So first of all, I'll mention that the two door handles of this car do feature molded in the metal casting. We also do have a side vent on this car featuring in the metal casting. It is just an indentation, not a shut off or hole, but it does still look very nicely done indeed. I will mention that this car does also have wing mirrors, and I've already mentioned that the side exhaust of this car does feature in the metal casting. I will also mention that the front window of this car is wound down, and I'm also going to start mentioning this in all my future videos, but this car is also left-hand drive. You can also see some vents which do feature on the front bumper portion of this car from this angle as well. They are just moulded into the metal casting and are not shut-offs or holes. And finally, I'll mention that we do have what appear to be some brackets holding some of the body parts of this car to the rest of the body of the car. Those brackets do feature on the real life car as well, so it's nice to see that the Hot Wheels team have added these small details. Anyways, that is it for the side of this thing. Now let's move on to the front of this car. Alright, so taking a look at the front of this car then, the detail here is fantastic, as with the rest of the car to be honest, so let's get straight into it. First of all, I'll mention that the headlight covers of this car have been tampoed on here in grey, which is accurate to the real life track car. Nice detailing there from the Hot Wheels team. I will also mention that the front grille portion of this car has been tampoed on here in black, but on this Hot Wheels model it is just a flat piece, which is actually accurate to the real life car, as the real life car only has one small vent in the actual front grille portion of it. It is not the standard front grille which you see on most road going cars. Instead, all the cooling systems feature lower down on the front bumper portion. We will get to that in just a second, but I'll mention that the Hot Wheels team have actually included that small vent which does feature on the main front grille portion of this car in the metal casting. Great levels of detail here once again from the Hot Wheels team. You can see this vent featuring in the metal casting a little bit better on the white version of this car. We also do have an Audi badge featuring on the front grille portion of this car being done in white tampo, and we also do have the returning Goodyear sponsor. There's two of them featuring on the front bumper portion of this car, and it is being tampoed in white once again. We also do have the entirety of the front splitter portion of this car being tampoed in white. Now there is a small little break in this tampo. Now why is that there? That is to make room for the tow hook, which does also feature in this car's metal casting. That is just great. The level of detail here in the casting is awesome. They haven't missed a single little thing, and I love it. And the final bit of tampo work which I do want to mention is the continuation of the black stripes from the side of this thing. Anyways, that does lead me on to the casting, so let's get straight into it. You can just about see the vents which I talked about when we were looking at the side of this car from this angle, but you can see them better from the side, that's why I mentioned it there. You can also see two more smaller vents also featuring in the metal casting. These are just indentations, they're not shut-offs, they don't lead anywhere, but the two larger front vents of this car, which are used for cooling in the real life car, are actual shut-offs or holes in the metal casting and do lead through to the black base plastic. That just makes these vents look a lot more realistic and 3D in my opinion. Really impressed with that. It's always a great thing to see, especially on more modern castings. Just looks fantastic. And yeah, that's really it for the front of this thing. So now let's move on to the next side of the car. Alright, so now onto the next side of this car then. It is practically the exact same as the previous side, so I'm not going to bore you going over everything all over again. You can pause the video here and have a look for yourself if you're looking for something specific. The only things which I do want to mention is first of all the front window of this car on this side is rolled down, and we do actually have a net created through the window plastic, which is accurate to the real life car. Once again, fantastic levels of detail there. I will also mention that part of the rear window of this car is also wound down. I know when I first opened the white version of this car, I thought, oh goodness, my car has got a cracked rear window, but no, it's actually meant to be like that, so don't worry if your car has this, it should be like this. But anyways, that is it for this side of the car. Now let's move on to the rear of this thing. Alright, so taking a look at the rear of this car then, even though there is no detail in terms of tampo work, there's still plenty of detail in terms of the metal casting. I will mention that the rear lights of this car have been moulded into the actual metal casting. You could easily add your own details to these using Sharpie or acrylic paints. We also do have the license plate holder portion of this car also being moulded into the metal casting through an indentation. Now on the real life track car, there is of course no license plate on this car, as that would be totally pointless. So instead, the license plate holder portion, which is found on the road going version of this car and hence features in this silhouette of the car, has been converted to be a vent. that helps to cool the car. And that portion has been done in black on the real life race car. Next up, I'll mention that the spoiler of this car does feature in the metal casting. It's not a separate plastic piece. It does receive a little bit of detail in terms of actual casting, and that is in the form of an indentation on the spoiler. Now, what is that representing? That is actually representing the split which occurs on the real life car's spoiler. Of course, the Hot Wheels model unfortunately does not have a shutoff or hole in the metal casting to make it accurate to the actual car, because it would have been too hard to have manipulated the metals to do that. So instead they've just done an indentation. It still doesn't look too bad. There are a few more details featuring the metal casting. First of all, I'll mention that the tow hook of this car does feature in the metal casting. It's just a little small dot of metal, but it's still there, and it's nice to see that detail nonetheless. And the final detail which we do see is another blob, exactly like the tow hook, but this time I don't know what it is. You can see it's on the real life car as well, but like I say, I can't find out what this is, so if anybody knows, please do let me know in the comment section below. Oh, and the final detail, which I almost forgot to mention, is the fender vents of this car do feature moulded into the metal casting. They are just an indentation though, and are not a shutoff or hole in the metal casting, unfortunately. It would have been nice for them to have been a shutoff or hole. Anyways, that is it for the rear of this thing. Now let's move on to the top of this car. Alright, so taking a look at the top of this car then, the detail does not stop yet. So first of all, you can see the spoiler of this car from a top view angle. You can see that same indentation featuring on the spoiler from this angle. I've already mentioned why that is, and it's simply because the real life car's spoiler is split into two sections. Next up, I'll mention that the interior plastic of this car is done in black. I will also mention that there are some racing components featuring in the trunk of this car. They have been moulded using the black interior plastic. Fantastic levels of detail here. Once again, there's just so much attention to detail here in this casting from the Hot Wheels team. Next up, I'll mention that the two aerials which do feature on the real life car are accurately portrayed onto this casting. You can see these two blobs which do feature on the roof of this thing. That is what they are representing. These aerials on the real life track car are used for track communications. Next up, onto the front windshield of this car then, I will mention that this car does actually have windshield wipers featuring in the window plastic. It is a small detail to see featuring on this thing, but it does make a difference for me. I think it just makes this car a little bit more complete. And since this detail is on this car, it will affect my score at the end of this video in a positive way, just like the wing mirrors being on this car will. I will also mention that there is a sun strip also represented on the front windshield of this car by the textured portion of the plastic. Interestingly though, this sun strip does not feature on the card art. However, on the real life car there is a sun strip, and on the real life car it does have Audi Sport written on it. It's kind of sad that they didn't tamper it on this car's windshield, since they did do a top tampo print press. But I mean, we've got to be thankful for what we got. We got 3 tampo print presses on a mainline. That is something we don't see very often at all. And finally, onto the hood of this car then, I will mention that we do have the continuation of the Audi Sport striping. We also do have the returning number 4 to the hood of this car in a 3D look, tampoed on here in white. I will also mention that we do have 2 vents featuring on the hood of this car in the metal casting. These are just moulded in, they do not lead anywhere and are not shut off, so holes in the metal casting. I would also like to mention that there are 2 hood pins featuring on the hood of this car in the metal casting in the form of bulges on the hood. Finally, I'll mention that we do have the Audi writing as well as the Quattro writing, once again returning to the hood of this car in white tampo. Anyways, that is it for the top of this car, and that is also it for my showcase of this thing. So now let's move on to my final thoughts and review on this car. Alright, so now it's time for my final thoughts and review on this car. Oh my goodness, is this thing beautiful. Whilst I don't think it's quite as good as the original white release, I think it still looks fantastic. This casting is beautiful. I love the fact that it has wing mirrors. I love the fact that it's also got windshield wipers. Both of those being there will affect my score at the end of this video in a positive way by about 1 point. The actual style of this car is super accurate to the real life car. They've just done a great job, and for a mainline, you just get fantastic value for money in terms of the casting and also tampo work. The amount of tampo work on this thing is fantastic. We get front tampo, top tampo, and also side tampo. That is 3 tampo print presses. Usually we only get 2 on mainlines, so again, incredible value for money. I absolutely recommend you pick this car up if you haven't already, in white or red. Either one, you get loads of value for money. I personally prefer the white one, but I think some people might prefer this red one. It's just going to be your opinion on that, to be honest. But both of them are absolutely solid. The casting's great, tampo works great. Couldn't have asked for any more on this car. And finally, I would love to mention that the wheel choice on this thing I think is great. I think the aero disc wheels suit this car fantastically, and these wheels are really quite accurate to the real life Audi 90 Quattro. That car also was rolling on aero disc type wheels as well. They were very deep dish on the real life car, so it's nice to see them accurately portraying the real life car's wheels on this thing. I've heard a lot of people wanting this casting to come to premium. Now, I understand why you'd want that, you want the full tampo treatment, but honestly, I don't want this to come to premium, and the reason why I say that is, I think there'd be some cars which really desperately do need to go to premium that just wouldn't get that treatment, and I think they should be prioritised over things like this, where they are already done fantastically in the mainline, and honestly, it receives all the details it honestly needs. There's not a whole lot missing, and hence, I don't think it should be rushed to premium. I think they should focus on other cars and other new castings, like, for example, the McLaren Solus GT, which is also a brand new casting for this year, which doesn't receive a whole lot of detail and would definitely benefit from being in the premium line. But anyways, that does lead me on my score out of 10 for this thing, so one of this car out of 10 is going to be receiving, once again, a 10 out of 10. This is just a fantastic casting. I think in any colour it's just going to look great. The tamper work on this thing is phenomenal. I do prefer the white one, but this one is absolutely solid as well. It's just fantastic. I couldn't have asked for any more in a mainline, and you get so much value for money with this car. And there are a lot of people claiming that this is the best casting for 2023, and I can't argue with that. I think this car is absolutely phenomenally done. There's nothing I can complain about. It's just done great. And honestly, it's so difficult to pick a best casting for 2023. There's just been so many great new castings. I'm going to have a really hard time picking for my year review video, which is coming up. I'm going to be shooting that very soon, so keep your eyes open for that one. But anyways, that is it for this video. So if you guys did enjoy, make sure to like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and you can also press that notification bell so you do not miss any new uploads. Remember, you can also share this video with any friends, family, or any groups who may be interested. But remember, don't feel pressured if you don't feel like you have anybody who may be interested. You watching this video all the way to the end means so much to me, and I really do thank you for making it all the way up until this point. But anyways, that is it for this video, so I hope you guys did enjoy, and I really do hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye bye everyone.